All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Hopefully you got some good gratitudes written down and your intentions for today or the rest of the week, or even maybe the rest of the year. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being the stalwart and the dedicated and willing to show up and be here. Many agents, every day that goes on between now and the end of the year is more and more are falling off. So those who remain and those who stay and work are going to see great success come to them, because in my opinion, I always just felt like this time of year, the business is easier because you have less competition, and the people who answer and are willing to talk to you and the people who show up, there's a reason they're showing up, is because they are more motivated. So we talk a lot about pre-qualifying and things, and you want to talk about a great way of pre-qualifying people is they're willing to set an appointment with you during the quote unquote holidays. And that's how you can know that who is serious and who isn't, is based upon who's going to show up and based on who's willing to talk to you. If they are this time of year, there's a pretty good chance you got some serious people that you're working with. And so that's where, for me, I always feel like don't give up, don't quit, and work strong, finish strong throughout the rest of the year. And yeah, and Judy said, showing up is 100%. You're right on. So cool. All right. Well, here's what I want to talk with you guys about today is many of you have either said this term or you have at minimum probably heard someone say it, even if you haven't said it. And it goes something like this: buyers are liars and sellers are storytellers. So typically I will hear agents use those terms, either buyers are liars or sellers are storytellers. Now, one of the things that we, and I almost said preach, and so I probably should say preach, because to some extent we do preach it, not just teach it. But we preach to you guys that your job is to be a leader, that the most important thing you will do is to lead people. Your job is to be a leader. John talked about yesterday, John Maxwell and the 5 levels of leadership. I debated on actually even just showing that video today, but I decided I'd rather share this instead. So just go look that up, as John mentioned yesterday, the 5 levels of leadership, and watch that video. But our job is to be a leader. And so what you want to be doing is leading people through a process that is going to result in them getting what it is they want, whether that is to buy a home or to sell a home. But your job is to lead them through that process. Now, unfortunately, what ends up happening, though, is that we put the cart in front of the horse, so to speak. Basically, what I mean by that is we get so focused on the transaction, the closing, the paycheck, that what happens is we miss the crucial, important steps along the way. And so what I mean by that is, too many times we will get on the phone with somebody in our prospecting and they will say something to the effect of, well, we were just curious, or for sale by owner, we just threw it on the market to see what happens. What's going on is something that I've shared with you guys before, and I'm not planning to go through all of this today, but essentially think of it as the buyer cycle and the seller cycle, which is this process that they're going to go through. And the first phase in that buyer cycle is what we would call percolation. Percolation is they are just thinking about it. So using the example that I did of a for sale by owner putting a property onto the market as a for sale by owner, and then you call them and they go, well, we're not really that serious about selling. We just thought we would put it up and see what happens. Now, there is a lot of that going on in the market today. Now, when I say a lot, our inventory is so low that there's not that much, I guess. But there are people who right now are seeing what their neighbors' homes are selling for. One of my neighbors came to me and said, hey, I'm going to be listing my home. And he told me, I think I've shared this with you guys before, but he said, don't feel bad. I just kind of feel like mixing friendship and business is not a good idea. To which I said, well, no worries. We're not friends anymore if you're not going to list your house with me. And so you don't have to worry about that anymore. But here's the thing. He told me what he wanted to list his home for. And I was like, yeah, good luck. That's probably not going to happen. And he put it on the market and he got 6 offers above list price that he had done it and sold it for cash within 2 weeks. Well, for me, I was like, wow, apparently even the market is faster than what I thought it was. Well, as a result of that, one of my neighbors then put their house up on the market for almost $100,000 more than what he sold his home for. So they really were up in the night in what they were thinking. But here's the point. There are people who are seeing what's happening, that then what happens is they go, well, maybe if we could sell ours for X amount, then we will sell it. And they put it on the market. Now, when you call them, they say, so for example, my neighbor, actually, the other one listed it, not with me, but they listed it with some other agent, put it on the market, and then they reduced the price a little, reduced it a little, and then they just took it off the market when they realized, okay, I guess we're not going to sell for that price. But here's the thing to keep in mind. Based upon that percolation, information gathering, and active phases, what is going on is people don't just put their house on the market really just to see, well, if we could sell it, we would. There is something typically going on below the surface on that. So now with that perspective, let me get into what I wanted to talk about, is people will say buyers are liars or sellers are storytellers. You've heard those sayings in the business and or said it yourself. Well, basically what that means, or what we are doing, is rather than taking responsibility for us, we're taking our lack of communication, is really the best way of saying it, and pointing that to something outside of ourselves. Buyers are liars, or the sellers are storytellers. See, what's really going on if we would tell the truth? Now, remember, you guys hear me say this. This is probably the most quoted thing I have said to you guys since we started doing Zoom Morning Ascent. And that is, power comes out of telling the truth. That's just a mantra that I believe if you want to have any change in your life take place, it starts with telling the truth. And not just the words we say, but telling yourself the truth up here. Power comes out of telling the truth. Well, so let's tell the truth. When somebody says buyers are liars, really the truth is on that. Now tying this back to our job is to be a leader. Your job is to lead people through a process. Don't get focused on the end game of your closing check. Instead, get focused on just what's the next step that would make sense for this person. If that's the way you will approach it, is just always thinking, what is the next relevant step? See, that's how I like to approach it, is thinking in terms of getting people to lead them through a process. Is your first thing is just, what is the next relevant step? If you can get the people to take that next relevant step, then what happens is if they take this step, they're letting you know they are headed towards this process. So then you just ask them to take the next relevant step and the next relevant step. See, really for me, I feel like we are in the relevant steps business. And instead of getting focused on getting a closing, focus on, with every person you talk to, just what's the next relevant step that they need to take. And if you can figure out what the next relevant step is, then you can get them to where they need to be. Now, so bringing it back again, I know it maybe feels like I'm all over the place, but there is a method to my madness that I'm doing here. Okay, so now we get them to take these relevant steps. Well, part of the process of us doing that, and sometimes actually what gets in the way of that, and where this idea comes from of buyers or liars, our job is to be a leader. The number one skill that we have, the number one skill that you and I need to keep working on over and over and over again, is communication. The most important thing we can do is communication. Now, I want to show you what goes on in terms of communication and what gets in the way, what creates the problems or the issues that we're going to run up against in terms of our communication. So rather than write on the board, I am going to do it on the whiteboard here. So I apologize that my handwriting is horrible when I'm writing on an iPad with a stylus, but it's horrible when I write on the board too. It's just worse on an iPad for some reason. But okay, here it is. So the top three complaints that people have about us as real estate agents is that we don't return calls. So the number one complaint is we don't return people's calls. Number two complaint that they have is that we don't listen. And then number three that they have complaint about us is that we waste their time. Now, this is where I say, I'm going to tie this together. They say that we waste their time. Now, typically when I will say that, what will happen is people will say, we waste their time, they're wasting our time. Well, see, now here's where I'm saying power comes out of telling the truth. If we will tell the truth that buyers are not liars, buyers don't lie and sellers are not storytellers. The truth is, if we tell the truth, is the problem that we encounter is our lack of communication. It's our ability to communicate in an effective manner. Now, let me show you where this comes from, this idea of buyers are liars. Where this comes from is this. Think about it this way. So if this were your brain, 10% of who you are is conscious. So 10% of who we are as a personality is conscious. 90% of who we are is unconscious. So think of it this way. Essentially what happens is as we are born and as we start to grow, what is happening in the brain is it is creating all of this wiring. This neural network is getting put in place. And what is happening is we are making decisions along the way. We are making decisions about who we want to become, how we're going to act, what we're going to look like. All of those kinds of things are decisions that we are making. But the problem is those things take place down here in the 90%. Well, at the conscious level up here is where things are logical, things are reasonable, things are rational. So think of it that way. 10% of who you are is logical, reasonable, rational, all of those things. Down here in the 90% is where the emotion is. This is where things are illogical, unreasonable, those type of things. Well, we all know that buying or selling a home is an emotional thing. It is our emotions get involved in that. And as a result of our emotions being involved in that, that is where the decisions are made down here at this 90%. So 90% of who we are is unconscious. Well, when we are going to communicate with somebody, we take this from the unconscious, bring it up to the conscious level, and then we're going to give that message out over here to someone else. Well, so if this is your client telling you what they want, what they expect, what their needs are, and over here is you, 10% conscious, 90% unconscious. What happens is this. When they're talking to us and telling us what they want, they're giving it to us as best as they know how at this logical level. It then comes through to us. We decode it, and think of it that way. Think of it as like if you were relaying a message back with Morse code. What's happening is they are tapping out the message. It then gets received and translated or decoded to put back together. Well, that's what happens with us in terms of our communication, is it comes in here at this conscious level. We then decode it down at the unconscious level, which is what it means to us. So let me explain what I'm saying to you. And I'll just talk about a buyer of a home for a minute, because this is where typically most of us get frustrated and don't want to work with buyers, is because we feel like they tell us one thing, but then they go buy something different. Well, where that comes from is this. They know what they want down at this level, which, by the way, think of it this way, is what they are really buying is a benefit. There's features and benefits. They talk to us in terms of features. The features are going to be at the 10%. These benefits are down here in the 90%. So when someone is telling you what they want in a home, they're telling you the features that will meet the benefit of what they are looking for. And so when I talk about with you in terms of our communication and that we have got to be better communicators. See, if somebody says to you, I want to buy a home high on a hill with a view of the city lights, that's the feature. But why do they want it? What is it that's below the surface? Think of it that way. What is it that's below the surface that they really want? What is the benefit of getting this home high on a hill with a view of the city lights? Or let's do this, a for sale by owner in terms of a seller. Why are they selling their home for sale by owner? Well, the reason they're doing it as a for sale by owner is because they think they're going to net more money by selling it themselves. They think they're going to save the commission. Well, so when you ask them, why did you decide to sell the home on your own? And they say to save the commission, this is where we want to use a level shift then with them of saying, okay, so if I understand what you're saying, really what you're looking for is to net the most amount of money from the sale of your home, right? They're going to say, yeah. Well, if there was a way that I could do it for you and you net more money, would it really matter what you're paying in terms of a commission?
Well, of course, the answer is going to be no. If I came to you and said, hey, I'm going to give you $10,000, but you've got to give me back four, you would gladly say, okay. And if you wouldn't, then I want to do some business with you if you're not going to be willing to do that. So just keep in mind that what is happening is when somebody is telling you what they want or expect out of you as an agent, or what they want if they're a buyer of a home, they're telling you in terms of the features, but what they really want is the benefit. So we talk in terms of features. See, hopefully you're making the connection here of this is where the benefits reside, is down here. But they come out when the person talks to you in terms of a feature. So they're telling you about the feature, and our job then is to communicate and ask the questions in such a way as to figure out what is it about the feature that they're looking for. See, if you can take that down a layer into what's the benefit of the feature that they are talking about, you can meet that in other features. See, that's the idea when somebody says, when you hear an agent say, or you say, buyers are liars, really what you're saying is, I stayed at the surface level, at the feature level, and got so focused on the feature that I missed out on the benefit. Because here's what I will promise you. And again, with a buyer in particular, is when they go buy something that you say buyers are liars, the truth is they bought the benefit they were looking for. They just bought it in a different feature than what you were looking for. And the problem is we hear them talk about the feature and get so fixated on the feature that we miss digging down to figure out what's the benefit of that feature. See, once we know that what the benefit is, we can then go meet that possibly in some other way. Let me give you just the best example from my personal life that I have of this. Before I bought the home I'm in right now, I said, and my wife said, we wanted to have 1 acre of land. Well, the home we bought ended up being on 0.25, so a quarter of an acre. Well, if I hadn't been an agent and you had been my agent and I went and bought that property, you would have said buyers are liars. But see, if you really had asked enough questions to me of, well, what do you want to have that 1 acre of land for? What are you going to use it for? See, that's the first step of this. So when somebody tells you a feature, you got to find out, what are you using that feature for? What is the purpose of that feature? Because once you identify what the purpose of that feature is, then we can now start to move into the benefit. Well, for me, when I said I wanted 1 acre of land, well, what do you want it for? Well, I want to have 1 acre of land because I want to be able to go out in the backyard and play catch with my kids. I want to have enough room to throw a baseball for my kids to pitch, those type of things. Well, then from there, now that I know that, if I'm the agent of that person, I could say, well, what would your feelings be? Or how would you feel about if you didn't have 1 acre of land, you got some smaller than that, but there was a park across the street or right outside of your backyard, something, you butted up to a park, something like that. Well, see, because that's what ended up happening to me. See, the benefit that I wanted was to be able to just walk out of the house, go play catch, be able to hit a baseball, whatever. Well, so here's the thing. I ended up buying a home that's on a quarter of an acre, but right outside of my backyard is our community, our neighborhood park. And contained within that is a basketball court. It's got a tennis court. It's got a huge grass field that even with my 12-year-old right now, he's getting to the point this won't work much longer, but I can go over there and throw a baseball and he can hit it as far as he can hit it. And it doesn't go into anyone's yard yet. He's almost there. But here's the point. On 1 acre of land, I could not have done that. He would have been able to hit the ball into somebody else's yard. So in actuality, buying the quarter acre lot worked out better for me because of the park that's right behind me. See, it's the benefit that they're buying, not the feature. So your job as an agent, when you're talking to people, whether it's a seller or a buyer, and you start talking to them and start finding out what's important to them, you've got to ask additional questions that will dig down deeper that allow you to get to the benefit. Once you get to the benefit, now you'll know how to meet that need that could be different than the feature they're saying. So here's, I guess, at the end of the day, what I'm saying is ultimately become a better communicator, get better at asking additional questions that drill down so that you can figure out what the benefit is. Once you land on that benefit, you're going to now be able to assist them. And there's a side benefit that I haven't talked about that comes from this. When you will talk to people that way, when you will ask additional questions and really ask probing questions that will drill down into that unconscious where the decisions are and have already been made, what ends up happening is it creates this connection and rapport with them. They feel understood. They feel listened to. They will look to you as you being someone who fully understands them, because you ask the questions that allow them to bring all of these things from the unconscious up to the conscious, where they can now understand what it is that they're trying to accomplish. And they will give you credit for having done that, which, by the way, creates the value to where when you ask for a full commission, they should not have a problem with it because they feel like you are the right person to assist them. All right, so here's my challenge for you for today. Is in your prospecting today or on your appointments that you go on, ask a few additional questions to drill down from getting from the features down to the benefits. And if you will do that, I will promise you, you're going to see greater success come to you. What you're going to find is people are more committed to you. They're going to see more value in you, which makes then the closing, the asking for the deal so much easier. All right. Well, hey, thanks for being with me today, guys. Hopefully you got something out of it, and go make it an awesome day. And we'll finish up now with some closing affirmations, and I will talk to you later.